Hi folks, it's Andy. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. Okay, we've got some fantastic questions for you today. Only a couple. I think there's something a bit different about how I posted the post in the Facebook group, so we haven't got as many questions as normal, but it's no problem because we've got some fantastic ones. But we'll get to them in just a minute. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. You know, all the YouTube stuff. You've already done it, I'm sure. Ring the Kendo bell after you hit subscribe. A little bell appears. That is the Kendo bell. You start to instantly get better at Kendo when you start pressing that bell. Okay, so when you press the bell, you only press it once. Press the bell, you'll start getting better at Kendo. Okay, it's fact. Most importantly though, don't forget, if you do like the videos that I put out, whether it's these weekly Kendo rants, whether it's the analysis type videos, the videos where I introduce you know, the well-known players and stuff like that, I've got more of those coming, or indeed the instructional content that I put out for free out here on YouTube. You can support it, keep it coming, keep the lights on, keep the camera rolling by shopping at KendoStar.com. That's my website, of course. It sells amazing, wonderful Kendo equipment, and of course I would say that, so check out our Trustpilot rating and you'll see that everyone else agrees with me as well. Okay, so that's KendoStar.com. You won't be disappointed. I'm sure there's people in your dojo using our stuff, right? Using the KendoStar stuff at this point. I'm sure there's people in your dojo that are very happy with us. So let's get into these questions. Hi, Andy. I love the show. I'm new to Kendo, about 8 weeks. Well, welcome to Kendo. Very late starting in my 40s. No, don't worry about that. Being a lot older than the other beginners and also not being a very loud, shouty person, is there a way you can advise on how I can find my ki? Is it something I'm struggling with? Okay, this is something that obviously lots of people struggle with because, you know, the shouting thing, it's one of the things that puts people off Kendo. It's something that people struggle with when they start out in Kendo, especially, like you say, if they're not a particularly loud or outgoing person, which I myself really wasn't when I first started Kendo, believe it or not. So, yeah, look, do your best. Just try to shout as loud as you can. And, you know, for the moment, I know it's going to be difficult, but one, you're going to get used to it, except that everybody's doing it. It's not just you. But as you progress, when you get better and do Kendo for a little bit longer, you'll start to wear the armor as well. And that includes the mask. Doing the ki, the shouting with the mask on, is much easier for most people because your face is covered. You know, you kind of... you're less identifiable, so a lot of people tend to find that they feel less self-conscious once they've got the mask on, the men. So I'm sure that'll help as well. All right, but otherwise it's just practice. You'll get used to it. And like I say, remember, everybody's in the same boat. Everybody's doing the same thing. All right, so there's no reason for anyone to feel sort of strange or unusual because everyone's been asked to do it as well. All right, but I understand that it does. Next one. What are your thoughts on the title of Sensei as a grade level versus Sensei as a position of authority in a dojo? What are some of the nuances that you've encountered? Thanks in advance. This is a great question, and it links into some of the other questions that we've got later in the show. So look, the title of Sensei. It's a bit of a difficult one. It shouldn't be. Personally, right, I think that we often have the tendency to overemphasize the importance of the word sensei. Okay, you'll find that in Japan, it's just another version of a suffix to a name, and it's not something you necessarily just call anyone. But you know, for example, the dojo I was practicing at in Japan, all of the adults used the suffix sensei. Everybody was called sensei. It didn't matter what grade they were, because it was, you know, it was a children's dojo mainly. So from the children's point of view, everybody was sensei. So whether they were third, if the adult was sort of third dan, or whether they were eighth dan, everybody called them sensei. And we referred to each other as sensei as well. And it didn't have this sort of sort of aura of sort of grandiose power that we seem to attach to it. It's not like Cobra Kai, yeah, where it's like everybody's bow to your sensei sort of thing. That's just a TV show. It doesn't need to be like that, and it shouldn't be like that. Yeah. So look, part of the thing is, right, is that in the West, especially, or outside Japan, I should say, the main thing that we use to distinguish where we're at on our kendo journey is our dan grade, whereas in Japan it's not so much like that. Actually, dan grade is somewhat secondary, and age tends to be the determining factor in the way that people are sort of placed in the sort of dojo hierarchy. Of course, it depends on the place and what have you, but it's not unusual in a Japanese dojo for an eighth dan sensei to take a lower position than a seventh dan sensei, if that seventh dan is their, say, their senior, in not just in terms of years, but let's say their senpai from school or something like that. So it's not just about grade in Japan, but we don't have those sort of systems outside, so we tend to attach it to grade. So we do that in my own dojo as well. In the UK, we tend to, in our dojo, the sort of sensei we sort of consider from fourth dan up. And, you know, I know not everybody wants to, on the other side as well, right? Not everybody wants to assume the title of sensei. Not everyone wants to be thought of as a sensei. They just want to be thought of as, you know, just, you know, another guy in the dojo, another person in the dojo. But it's not like that either. It's important that that people with experience understand that they are examples for others, and that's literally what sensei is, right? So if you break the word sensei down in Japanese, the kanji means the person who lived before. It means the person who is, you know, has the more experience in a way. So they're the example for you. So it is important that from people who are sort of more experienced in kendo, that you also accept that students look to you as a sensei, but it doesn't give you the sort of a license to act, like I say, like you're part of Cobra Kai. If you've seen that show, but you know, like that sort of hard, I am a sensei, you must bow to me sort of thing. You don't, that's not right either. All right. So that's not the right thing to do, or the right way to act. You should be just the good example. And for the other students. So yeah. And you know, there's senseis to me, people who I consider senseis, because regardless of their grade, you know, there's people I know that are much lower grades than me, but I consider them my superior in the dojo. I still call them sensei, because of the sort of, often they're much older than me, much more experienced than me. Maybe they were senseis when I was a beginner, and just because I've overtaken them in the grade, it doesn't mean that they're not a sensei anymore. Yeah, so there's that too. I'm not sure if that answered it, but it was it was quite a good little rant, and this is Kendo Rant, so there you go. Hi Andy, I've got a few questions this week. 1, why do we not use saya for the bokken? 2, pros and cons of carbon shinai. 3, is it appropriate to use a custom design for the middle of your zekken? For example, I was thinking of getting a symbol to represent my city instead of the kanji that are usually found in the middle. Right, okay, there's some good ones. 1, why don't we use a saya for the bokken? Because we don't need it. We don't need to. All right, it's not necessary. The vast majority of us will probably not use an actual sword, an actual katana, to do kendo kata. And even those of us that do, it won't be a regular occurrence. The way we use a saya, if you started to use a saya, then there's a lot of extra stuff that is involved with how a sword, including a saya, it has to be treated, how it has to be worn. And it complicates things beyond the point of which the reason for the kendo kata existing in kendo sort of makes it necessary for. So we don't need it is the short answer. Okay. That's, we don't, kendo kata isn't iaido. It's not part of what we're sort of that sort of whole saya stuff. It's not part of the kendo curriculum because it's not necessary for what the kata is for. The pros and cons of a carbon shinai. So the pros of a carbon shinai is they tend to be more durable than bamboo shinai. They are not indestructible. They're not permanent. They do break. But in general, they're more durable than a bamboo shinai, and they don't really require much maintenance. You don't have to oil them or shave them or anything like that. In fact, you mustn't shave them. A carbon shinai, by the way, is the Hasegawa. Hasegawa is a brand that makes them. There's only one brand that makes them. It's a carbon graphite shinai. They're thin pieces of carbon graphite coated in plastic. And they make up the 4 slats of the shinai. They're a little strange because they're very straight. They don't have the little bumps, the fushi that the shinai has. In terms of cons, 1, they're very expensive, of course. 2, they don't have the greatest balance in the world. And 3, they're very elastic. They're very bendy. Okay. Much more so than bamboo shinai. So they don't give a fantastic feedback. And I don't recommend them for beginners because it will affect the way that you learn to do tenouchi, which is the wrist and hand action for when you strike. So I don't recommend them for beginners, certainly. Obviously, there's certain situations where they are a good investment in very dry countries where bamboo shinai break very quickly and easily, for example. But look, they were designed, just quickly, they were designed mainly for schools, for them to be used in schools in Japan so that they could be used as PE, physical education equipment, and used by kids that will be doing some kendo activities as part of their physical education, not actual. So the kids that will be using them, they don't normally do kendo. Yeah. So that's, it means that the school doesn't have to keep replacing bamboo shinai. They could just buy a bunch of these carbon graphite ones and just leave them. But there's a reason that you don't see them used in the All Japan Championships or the All Japan 8th Dan Championships. All right, there's a reason for that. It's because they're not as good as the bamboo ones, but indeed they are a bit more durable. Is it appropriate to use a custom design in the middle of the zekken? For example, I was thinking getting a symbol to represent my city instead of the kanji that are usually found in the middle. Usually it's actually depends on the name as what's in the middle, whether it's kanji is the Chinese characters that the Japanese language also uses. So they're usually used for Japanese names or other Asian names that have names that can be written using kanji. And then sort of non Asian names tend to be written with katakana, which is a phonetic way of writing, specifically generally used for foreign words. So my name is written using that. In terms of using a symbol instead of the Japanese in the middle, you should speak to the people in your dojo, speak to your dojo leader, see how they feel about it. The zekken is supposed to, for the most part, as much as possible, match with everybody. So if it's just you with that in the middle, it's not really right. So, speak to the person who's in charge at your dojo and ask them what they think. But I'd recommend, if everybody doesn't have that you don't have that either. Okay. The zekken is supposed to be a uniform, part of a uniform. What is the proper zanshin and footwork for ojiwaza like men suriage men, kote suriage men, kote kaishi men. That's a tough one. When I try to go forwards for the strike, I hit too far down the shinai. So should I be going backwards like with hiki men, station fumikomi, and then stick to them like with zanshin or for a kote strike? So watch my video on kote kaishi men, okay? I do a video about kote kaishi men and I talk about different types of ways you can complete that strike. It's not I'm going to just go on a tangent here about what is proper Zanshin. Proper Zanshin is to keep your mind and spirit aware and focused on your opponent so that you can make a secondary strike if necessary, and to obviously keep your opponent in your focus. That is proper Zanshin. So sometimes that means that you have to go backwards after striking. Sometimes it means you have to go forwards. You should always keep your eyes on your opponent as much as possible. So when I do Kote Kaishimen, it's okay to. It depends on the distance, yeah. But usually, if you do it right at the right timing, you shouldn't have to go backwards. Generally, I tend to, after the strike, I don't go forwards either. I tend to do the Fumikomi on the spot, and they're coming forward, and I keep them in my field of vision this way, and then return to Kamae. If they're coming in really fast or I was a bit late, then I can make it like a Hikimen, and after the strike, I'll go backwards to get my distance and then return to Kamae. It depends on the situation, but it's flexible. It's not one is definitely the right way. Okay, so go and watch the video I did on Kote Kaishimen, because I do talk about it a bit in there. Okay, and watch the video I've done on Orjuazo as well, because there's a few examples of like Mensuri men, for example. Often that can be a bit better with their like Hikiwaza type footwork and Zanshin, but depends. It depends. Okay, next one. Hi, Andy Sensei. I hope all is well with you and your family. Asking for a friend. This guy started in a newly started dojo like a year ago. He started training with 4 of the students, and time passes by, progressed thanks to KendoStar videos from zero to Shodan. Oh, good. You notice that his sensei is not doing what he or she teaches. I guess you mean like, yeah, the footwork seems off, so it doesn't sort of match with what you've seen in the videos I've done. He's later told by his sensei that he had 10 years of kendo experience but never took any gradings or hold any dan ranks. Time passes by again and none of his peers can do Fumikomi after a year, and his sensei seems to only care about having more students. He later quit and switched to another well-established dojo. The question is, can you entitle yourself as a sensei and open a kendo dojo not having any downgrades? Thanks in advance. Okay. So look, that's a difficult situation, and unfortunately it's something that happens from time to time. I don't really want to get into the situation you've experienced, because you've already said you've quit the dojo and you've joined another one that you appear to be happier at. Great, fine, no problem. About can someone just open a dojo without having any downgrade is the question, right? Depends on where you are, but in most places there's nothing to stop someone doing that. I know in some in some federations they require you to have a certain downgrade before you open a dojo, but you know, someone could still do it and just not join the federation, right? So there's nothing to stop anyone doing that. There isn't. Sure. But if you do that, yeah, if someone does that, then what you've experienced is what's going to happen. Their students are going to realize that what they're doing is different to elsewhere. It's not quite the same. Doesn't quite add up. And some won't, but others will. The thing is like, look, if you want to open a dojo, this is not to you, but to people that want to open a dojo, you should get some kind of rank or qualification if possible. Now, having said that, I on this channel have also said to people in the past who've asked me, there's no dojo near me, can I start my own? That I've encouraged them to do so, but to follow the videos that I've put out exactly without deviating, without changing. And I know that some dojos have actually grown to become successful dojos from that. All right, so it's possible. Yeah, because most dojos, but most countries started with kendo in that situation, right? But what you can't do is like you can't just start a dojo with no, you know, the difference is whether you're trying to do better and do it right, or whether you're trying to just do your own thing and just get students like you're suggesting the person your friend is studying under was doing. Don't know, but it is important that if you want to be there's no real excuse for doing Kendo for 10 years and not achieving any downgrade. You should do that. If you don't, you're not improving at Kendo. There's no person that's done Kendo for 50 years or 40 years or whatever that's never done a downgrade and is doing Kendo at 7th dan level. That isn't the case. Doesn't exist. Yeah. You do Kendo, you do Shodan and never do another grading. You're always doing Kendo as a Shodan. You're always Shodan level. That's how it works. Okay. You need to take the gradings in order to progress to the next level. So it's not good to just use your experience as a reason to experience. When I say experience, I mean like time practicing Kendo as a sort of excuse to open a Kendo club. You need to have a validation that you are capable of what you're teaching is correct. And one of the main ways we do that is through the Dan ranks. Kendo has to be taught correctly, all right? Very important sensei to me said to me quite recently that the teacher is the needle and the student is the thread. Yeah. So if you're the teacher, student is the thread. You go the wrong way, the student follows you the wrong way. Okay. You must make sure that you are traveling in the right direction. That means that you have to care about the direction you're going in. You don't just care about getting more students. Don't just care about making your dojo bigger. Yeah. You don't just care about how many tournaments your students can win. That's good, but you have to make sure that you're also doing the shugyo yourself. You're also shugyo is the journey yourself, making sure that you're improving so that you can be the needle and they can be the thread. Very, very important. Okay. So look, there was a reply to this question, and I don't want to get into it too much because it looks like there was some sort of history there. I don't want to sort of encourage disagreements, but another question spawned from that, which was an interesting question would be, would you train Fumikomi on slippery grass? Okay, so if you're training outside, all right, which a lot of people have been doing because of the pandemic, yeah, then obviously it changes things because it's not the same as training in a dojo on a not hardwood floor, on a wooden sprung floor. Would I train Fumikomi on grass? Yeah. Depends. It depends on exactly what the terrain is like. I have done Kendo outside on grass. Actually, I was in a couple of shiai that were done outside on grass. And yeah, I did Fumikomi. Yeah, everybody did Fumikomi. But if it's slippery, then maybe that could be an issue, could be dangerous. So maybe I wouldn't. I have had to train in dojos where the floor is too hard to do Fumikomi. But here's the thing, right? All right, so you're on a floor or a space where you can't do Fumikomi. That doesn't mean that you just abandon Fumikomi and just try to do everything else the same. Okay? There's people that have asked me, I can't do Fumikomi because of my injury or whatever. What should I do? And then what they try to do is some sort of half and half, where they're trying to do a strike as if they were going to do Fumikomi, but instead of doing Fumikomi, they just do this sort of out of sync step. If you can't do Fumikomi because of the floor or because of whatever reason, you still have to make strikes with Kikentai no Ichi. Okay, that doesn't mean equals fumikomi. That means that the strikes, if you have to use suriashi, it still has to be together. All right, and it doesn't mean you just jump forward and don't do fumikomi. Okay, so yeah, if you can't do it, then you train other methods, like with suriashi, with correct. You can do kirikaishi without fumikomi. I've shown that in my videos, right? I've shown in Zero to Shodan kirikaishi the method of doing kirikaishi without fumikomi. I still practice that way, all right? I still practice that way in my dojo with a floor I can do fumikomi on. I practice the other ways as well, but that practice method itself is very, very useful. Yeah, just this correct fumikomi with the not fumikomi kirikaishi with suriashi. All right, focusing on kikentai no ichi. Kikentai no ichi is unifying the spirit, sword, and body together into your strikes. Yeah, not just leaping forward, man, this way. Yeah, together with the feet and body. Okay, this can be done. Yeah, you don't just go, oh, we can't do fumikomi on here, so I'll just leap forward. Right. Anyway, that's enough of a rant on that one as well. I'm very ranty today, but this is Kendo rant, right? People often ask me, why is it called Kendo rant when it's more like a Kendo Q&A? I started this out where I just when I first started Kendo rant, I didn't take questions. I just ranted about stuff that annoyed me. But then it became a sort of question show, and I like the title. And it gives me freedom to rant like that, right? Like I am now, off script. Never know what's coming. All right, we're on the last one. Greetings, Fisher Sensei. Due to the pandemic, many so-called Kendo or Iaido instructors emerged on the internet, and several of them are low-level practitioners and lack ability to technically reproduce what they preach. I say that in compassion to your own comparison to your own channel with great quality and content. Good, I thought you were talking about me there. I understand that it can be good for business, but how do you see the expansion of unqualified instructors and lay practitioners who have no formal affiliation to a recognized dojo? Okay, so look, this is quite similar to the previous question. It's just whether it's online or not. I haven't seen that many people actually online who are sort of trying to teach Kendo when they don't really have any sort of what do you say, like experience to do so. You know, I've been teaching Kendo via YouTube for years now, yeah, and I started at a little bit earlier than I might have. I could have. I started when I was 4th dan, going on 5th dan. But I stuck to very basic stuff in the beginning, right? And then when I got my 5th dan, I started doing a little bit more advanced stuff. And then when I got my 6th dan, I started doing basic stuff again. Well, we've got more advanced stuff coming, actually. But I haven't seen so many of what you're talking about, but I'm sure they exist. I'm not, but fine. All right, fine. Essentially, the same thing will happen as with the other question from up here. In that people will notice, people will see, yeah. If they're not doing it right, if they're not, like you say, if they don't have the ability to demonstrate what they're showing, or talking about, then people will realize when they see the other channels or the other practitioners that are doing it correctly, right? That's exactly what happened to this guy's friend up here, right? This guy's friend up here, he noticed, yeah. So I don't think it's something we need to worry about too much. And like I say, I don't think they're not going to suddenly get 1 million subscribers and be super influential on the internet. I mean, we're one of the biggest Kendo channels on the internet now. Thankfully, thank you everybody. We're still growing very quickly. But we're still not massive, like in terms of like YouTube massive, it's not the case where every single Kendokai in the world is watching the Kendo show, though they should be. So tell everyone in your dojo. But so these sort of smaller channels with sort of, like you say, a little bit ropey instruction, I don't think they're going to get the traffic where it's going to make a big difference to anything in the long term. And like I say, most people are going to see that. So I think that's it. Thank you for joining me today. we've got through all the questions. Not so many this time. I'll see if we can get more for next week, but we'll see. Have a great weekend. I'll see you all next week. Thank you very much. Shop at KendoStar. Bye-bye.